Yo, welcome back. I am Tripolar Bear, and this is a Toxic Rain Mine complete build guide. If you like this build, yoinked my POB, or enjoyed my video guides in general, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and following my Twitch to see more guides and encourage this hard work and content. The main ability we'll be using is going to be the bow attack, Toxic Rain. Toxic Rain will shoot an arrow into the air, which will rain down around the target area and create spore pods where the arrow lands. These spore pods will deal chaos damage over time for a duration until the pods burst. Toxic Rain is such a great league start ability because the damage over time component of this ability scales with gem levels like most spells do. This allows us to obtain a very easy damage source throughout maps by simply playing the game and leveling our gems, without the need to upgrade our weapons very often or at all. We will combo Toxic Rain with Blastchain mines, which makes supported attacks that use bows throw a mine instead, so that we can preload a lot of these Toxic Rain attacks on the ground. These damage over time pods will stack, and with more than 12 coming out on a full load, we can easily delete map bosses, conquerors, and endgame bosses in general. So, why would we use a mine instead of just attacking with our bow? I have created a self-cast Toxic Rain character before, which is still very good and viable, by the way, but I figured I would try the mine version and see how this performed in comparison. The mine version has a lot less wrist movement involved in the playstyle, as you don't need to move your mouse and aim. You can simply throw the mines at your feet and detonate them with left mouse button. The mine will auto-target any nearby enemies. This is a much smoother gameplay style, as the attack version needed to move the mouse and aim your attacks into the middle of a pack to clear, and the bossing required a lot of strafing movement and attacking to maintain distance. The mines, on the other hand, can be played with left mouse button being detonate, and you simply hold that down and right click to throw the mine and instantly detonate them. This allows you to run away and attack the boss without fast wrist movement, flicking to move and then flicking back to the boss to attack and flicking back again to move again. Another great thing about mines is how much damage you can preload onto the ground, given you can lay up to 17 or more mines with this build. This lets certain bosses become trivial with the ability to instant phase or instant kill them if you get the chance to preload. Blastchain is so powerful because of that line that says skills deal 5% more damage for each prior mine in the detonation sequence. This allows your mines to deal upwards of 100% more damage, depending on how many mines you can throw down after the detonation sequence begins. Mines reserve portions of our mana while on the ground, so at the start, we can reserve 12, and with an intuitive leap grabbing reduced mana reserve, we can reserve up to 19 mines. Once you press the detonate mine button, you can lay mines down in the same area, and those new mines laid down will be counted within the same detonation sequence. This lets us get a Blastchain combo of 30 or more. For this reason, it is important to only press the detonate once, or you will lose a lot of damage. The last positive thing I want to mention about Toxic Rain in general is that since it is a chaos damage over time ability, you do not have to worry about any map mods at all, which is a huge bonus as a league starter. You never have to reroll maps, and you never have to try and get rid of that reflect map that you accidentally corrupted into. And on top of that, we can do no regen because we are going to use an enduring mana flask. We can do any curse as well, since we'll have a warding flask on our quartz flask, giving us immunity to curses during the entire duration of the flask. This build will struggle a bit for the people who don't like the mine playstyle, or those who don't put detonate on the left mouse button. I'm looking at you, console people. I'm sorry, I feel for you. I personally play with detonate on left mouse button, and I have a separate move only key I can press if I need to move before detonating my Blastchain, which works completely fine. This build also requires you to get at least 70 plus flat life on your pieces of gear to get more than 4k life, which is reasonable, but requires some knowledge of how to use the trade website or identifying a lot of rare pieces. So how does Toxic Rain scale its damage? Well, it's mainly going to be off of gem levels from our bow and our Corrupted 21 Toxic Rain gem. Then chaos damage, mine throwing speed, damage over time, chaos damage over time multiplier, skill effect duration, which is huge. This makes the pods last longer on the ground, which lets us have 20 plus layers of pods lasting much longer, doing their damage over time much longer as well. And don't forget about the Blastchain sequence, which gives 5% more damage for each detonated mine sequentially. And of course, area of effect, which we need at least 25 AoE radius in our POB on our character to get 5 pods to overlap for huge single target damage. For clearing, we will supplement Toxic Rain's low coverage but high damage with Caustic Arrow, which is an exact opposite. It has extremely high coverage when paired with Arrow Nova, but it has mediocre damage. This is okay, since we will only use Caustic Arrow for clearing packs of normal and magic monsters, while throwing down 1 or 2 Toxic Rains to clear tanky rares or random unique monsters while mapping. Caustic Arrow has amazing coverage since we link it with Arrow Nova and Pierce, giving it full screen coverage of its damage over time green goo pool. For single target, we'll put our Wither Totems down, which is extremely important. For our reference, without this Wither setup, you will literally be doing half the damage you could be. After putting down the Wither Totems, we'll be throwing our Toxic Rain mines down, as many as we can, and popping our Vol Grace and throwing more mines down once that Blastchain sequence begins. Now, let's talk about the defenses for our Toxic Rain Trickster build. This is a dodge and evasion build, so our main defense will be mechanically dodging large monster hits and using our in-game dodge from acrobatics and phase acro. If an attack does get through, we will have Wind Dancer, giving us 20 less damage taken, and if you need a little bit more defense, a Kintsugi for another 20%. Now, on bosses and during Legions and Rippy Deliriums, we will use Vol Grace to cap our dodge and ensure we nearly never get hit. We will also use a cast when damage taken Steel Skin support setup to give us an additional 1000 damage shield after we've taken 1300 damage. Our single best defense while mapping is going to be quick and constant movement and constant use of our damage abilities and flasks, while Patient Reaper gives us 2% life and energy shield every single time we kill, which instantly recovers our life in Porcupine packs or other fast-hitting but lower damage and life monsters. Let's talk about our Ascendancy choices now. In normal lab, we will pick up Patient Reaper for its amazing instant life recovery and a massive 50% increased damage over time bonus. It will also increase our recovery rate for life, mana, and energy shield if we've killed an enemy affected by our damage over time recently. In Cruel Lab, we will get Prolonged Pain, giving us 20 skill effect duration, which causes our pods to last much longer, and Overlap for much more time. It also gives us 10% reduced damage taken from damage over time, and 20 more damage over time. This single note accounts for 25% of our total build's damage. Alright, for Merc Lab, we will pick up Ghost Stance, giving a buff called Ghost Shrouds, which we get one of every 2 seconds up to a total of 3 shrouds. Each Ghost Shroud gives us 2% reduced damage taken for a total of 6, and an additional 3% evade, and this node gives us 10% movement speed while we have any energy shield at all. Our last lab from Uber Lab, we will pick up Escape Artist, giving us evasion rating if we have an energy shield helmet, and energy shield if we have an evasion chest piece. We will also get 6% attack and cast speed per ghost shroud for a total of 18 attack and cast speed. We will get stun immunity when we have any number of ghost shrouds and 10% spell dodge if we have any energy shield at all. Let's talk about the links that we will use while mapping. Our main damage link for Toxic Rain will be, of course, a level 21 Toxic Rain, Blastchain mine support, Swift Assembly, allowing us to throw many additional mines very fast, Trap and Mine damage, Vicious Projectiles, and Charged Mines, which gives us the ever-powerful Frenzy Charge this build needs. These Frenzy Charges will give us 10% mine throwing speed, and each Frenzy Charge on its own is also giving 4% more damage. The only Awakened gem we need is Awakened Vicious Projectiles for our main damage setup. Next, for our clear ability, we'll be using Caustic Arrow, linked to Blastchain mine support, Pierce, so that every time our Caustic Arrow pierces an enemy, it's going to leave that Caustic Arrow pool on the ground. To make the coverage even better, we will also link our Caustic Arrow to Arrow Nova, which shoots an arrow up into the air just like Toxic Rain, except when it comes down, it's going to shoot out into a circle, creating this large area coverage, sending our Caustic Arrows out over the entire screen. To make the damage a little bit better for Caustic Arrow, we'll also link Vicious Projectiles and Trap and Mine damage. For our offensive auras, we will use Malevolence, giving more damage over time, and Skill Effect Duration, which is huge for Toxic Rain. We will also use Summon Skitterbots, which gives us a free Shock, Chill, and extra mine detonations. Later on, we'll pick up the ring Profane Proxy to give up our Skitterbot's Chilling Aura for a Despair Curse aura, so we do not have to self-cast our Despair Curse. Now, if you don't have Profane Proxy yet, you will have to self-cast Despair, but that is not too much of a problem, as Profane Proxy becomes very cheap after a few days into the league. For movement abilities, we will use Dash and the Second Wind support for quick movement and the ability to hop across ledges. Now, how do we get Frenzy Charges? Well, we will get Frenzy and Power Charges from our Charged Mine support, which gives us the chance to generate them if our mines are targeting a monster. For our Bandits, we will take the 2 skill points from the Bandits, as the other choices add absolutely nothing to the build. For our Pantheons, we'll take Soul of Lunaris for the extra physical damage mitigation while there are many enemies nearby, and an additional 5% chance to dodge attacks and spells if we've been hit recently. For our Minor God, we will pick Abrath because I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely hate burning ground. This build guide and all of my build guides will be using the community fork of Path of Building. Please make sure you have the correct version of Path of Building. If you don't think you do, go down into the description and download the community fork, as it is not the normal version, but an even better buffed up version with a bunch of added community options, and is overall the superior way to use POB now that the old version is not being supported as much anymore. Also, while you're down there, man, like, yo, help me out here, dude. Just click that sub button, man. I made this whole build for you, dude. Just go down. You lasted this whole time, dude. You've been watching for like 16 minutes, man. Just go press that sub button. All right, anyway, let's talk about making the expensive bow and making the god bow that this build will use in the endgame versions. Now, you don't need these, but they are very good, and it can be a goal that you will be working towards if you've never had a very cool item or bow like this before. So, for the expensive bow, buy the Imperial Legacy Divination cards or get them as drops from Desert, Desert Spring, Dunes, Pillar of Arun, the Foothills, the Oasis, and the Vastari Desert. Now turn these in for a cheap 6-link bow base. These will be about 2 chaos on league start, so it's about 40 chaos for a 6-link bow, which is pretty good. Now I want you to buy 4 corroded, jagged, and metallic fossils. Buy 4 powerful resonators as well. That is the 3-socket resonator. Put the 3 different fossils in one resonator at a time, since you might get a little lucky and not need to use them all. The average is 4 tries to get a +1 socketed and +2 bow gems on the same bow. You might get unlucky, and for that, I'm sorry. Now I want you to unveil bows until you get the 3rd tier of chaos damage over time multiplier and craft that onto your bow. You can craft the lower tier for now if you need, and you can override that later on. Don't worry. Cry if you're unlucky, and cheer if you were lucky, if you got it early. All right, congrats. You now have what is going to be perhaps your endgame weapon. Now, if you want to go further beyond, you can try at the God Bow, which is going to be a little bit more expensive. You want to buy a 6-linked Marikath bow because the implicit will give movement speed. Now, just like last time, buy 4 corroded, jagged, and metallic fossils, but you want to also buy faceted fossils, which lets us roll +1 to socketed dexterity gems. Now you have to also buy 4 prime resonators. These are the 4-socket resonators. Just like last time, put the 4 different fossils into one resonator at a time, just in case you get lucky and you don't need to use them all. The average for this one is 1 in 4 as well. Hit +2 bow, +1 socketed, and +1 dexterity gems. In current heist prices, just the craft costs is going to be about 350 chaos. Also, unveil bows until you get that chaos.multi roll and craft that onto your bow so that you can have an amazing and beautiful bow. For crafting on this build, you need to know about the harvest crafts. To use the harvest crafts wisely for this build, it will be as easy as having a life and resistance hunter influence pair of gloves or quiver and augmenting chaos. Or you can re-roll these items, getting extra chaos mods on there as well. We will be rolling these for chaos damage over time multiplier on the quiver and the gloves. The very last piece of crafting advice I want to impart on you before we go into the POB and talk about how you are going to level this character and how you are going to gear it out is you need to know about crafting resistances on your crafting bench. This is very, very important to have a smooth leveling session on any character in any league on any league start. From the very first level, as soon as you get your crafting bench, if you're just starting the game, or as soon as you get to town after killing Hillock, you can craft resistances on any piece of gear for 1 transmutation orb. You can get 16 to 20 of fire, cold, or lightning resistances anywhere on your gear that has an open suffix. If you don't know what a suffix is, go into your UI, scroll all the way down, and turn on advanced mod descriptions. Now, when you hold Alt over your gear, you will see a suffix tag above your mods or a prefix tag. You can only ever have 3 suffixes or 3 prefixes on a rare item and only 1 of each on a magic item. So, even if you have a magic ring that has life, for example, you can still craft a resistance on there since it only has 1 prefix and no suffixes open. This is so busted. It makes leveling so easy, capping your resistances, dying less, so easy as well. This truly made my leveling much easier, and it will do the same for you as well. Now, let's get into the path of building that I have curated and created to hold your hand through the entire leveling process with skill gems, trees, notes, and gear sets as well. It will hold your hand from leveling all the way, if you choose, to the god tier gear and tree setup. The only thing you need to do is please make sure you have the community fork, as my pay spin will not work with the old vanilla version of Path of Building, as that is no longer the supported or chosen version that this community uses. All right, we've talked about how you are going to have an end game version of this build, But now we need to talk about how you're going to actually level this build, especially since this is a league start build guide. So starting as Shadow, let's go over the tree really quick. In my path to building, I have a ton of different tree options that you'll be using as you progress through your early league start game. So we've got the 1 to 12 tree, where we're just going to grab the chaos damage nodes, skill effect duration and damage over time, and then a little bit of life. From 12 to 35, and at 35, you need to make sure you do your normal lab and pick up Patient Reaper, as it's very good. We're going to come up to the area of effect nodes, some hybrid life and energy shield, and we're going to start picking up mine stuff, right? Now, I think one of the most important mine wheels that you can get right away, at least in my opinion, is this clever construction so your mines cannot be damaged for 5 seconds. Now, normally, monsters can't actually hit your mines, but area damage can. So if a monster does some like area of effect move, you know, instead of just an attack where they hit you, right, they do some area of effect or they put something on the ground, that can destroy your mines. So having this is very, very helpful when you're just throwing them down, right? We want to get those blast chains going. That's where the toxic rain mine damage comes from. Getting those blast chains going is difficult if your mines keep dying, right? You can't get a long detonation sequence if your mines get destroyed. So I think picking this up is very important, and I do that right away as soon as I can, traveling through the life and whatnot. All right, 35 to 55, making sure to do your cruel lab around 55, right? You don't have to do it right at 35 for normal, 55 for cruel, whenever you're comfortable, but it should be around those levels. So now I would pick up the elusive first, and then we're just going in the damage over time multiplier. Same thing up here. It's chaos damage over time multi. This wheel is very, very good, right? It's giving chaos damage over time and damage over time skill effect duration as well, which is huge for our toxic rain. And of course, we're a dodge and evasion build, so we're going to pick up acro and phase acro right about now. From 55 to 70, we're going to flesh out our life a little bit more, and we're going to start to pick up all of the other mind nodes that are useful for us, right? This one giving us area of effect for our toxic rain, which is nice. Helps us hit that 25 radius, which is needed for 5 overlaps of toxic rain. And then we pick up this so that we can place extra mines, and we get a little bit extra detonation speed and this nice little buff for the mines as well. And then we come down here, giving us reduced mana reservation for mines, which is very nice. Remember, when you place a mine, you get a small amount of your mana reserved. It's not too impactful on the one mine, but you know, once we want to start stacking 15 or more mines, you gotta get this so that you can really load up on the boss. And then we come down here, getting ready to go over to Wind Dancer, grabbing this nice damage over time with bow skills wheel. And of course, in the early mapping, I recommend heading on over to Wind Dancer as soon as you can. Now you've got acro, phase acro, you've probably got your quartz flask, maybe an Adziri step or 3-step assault if you need a little bit more of a budget option, as those boots are a little expensive, but we'll talk about the gear in a bit. And then we're going to start grabbing a lot more of that life. And I want you to pick up some frenzy charges too, right? We're using, right, charged mine gives us 10 throwing speed per frenzy charge, and we get frenzy charges when a mine from the supported skill is detonated and targets an enemy. Super, super easy to get the frenzy charges. And this is very, very good, and almost, I would say it is needed when you're using Swift Assembly, because you still have the mine throwing animation when this procs, and it will proc pretty often, especially at level 20. You see we have 18, 12, and 6%. That's going to add up to like a 38% chance to throw additional mines. That's really, really good, but that also takes a lot of extra time. So you do need that mine throwing speed. And then we also, of course, pick up intelligence and strength if you need it on the tree. I allocated these. If you don't need them, you know, just take them off. But I put those on here just in case. And of course, your Merc Lab. Make sure that you get the prolonged pain for skill effect duration, more damage over time. And then we pick up Escape Artist, giving us more buffs from our Ghost Shrouds, but we already talked about the Ascendancies. I have this tree here, which is for level 87. So you'll be working your way there, right? Until 87, you know, just take off the small life nodes. You know, you can wait to get some of that stuff. Maybe you wait to get the frenzy charges and stuff like that. You know, just use your better judgment up until that level. But from this point onward, this is the more expensive version of the tree. You're going to pick up this small wheel down here, which is a lot of nice damage. You'll probably want for T16 maps. We'll stack a few points of life here, but only because we get max life from a jewel socket and a lot of damage from a Watcher's Eye as well. So this is the more expensive endgame tree version. We also are going to get an intuitive leap here. This is going to let us save 3 points up here and then 2 points down here getting mana reserved, which is going to let us get a lot more Toxic Rain mines down. You see here my mana is at 21% unreserved, but every mine I put down is going to reserve a little bit more mana. This lets us reserve our max number of Toxic Rain mines, which is going to be 19 active mines at a time. So we get to have 19 mines on the ground, and then you still have a little bit of mana left. But without this, we don't actually get to put all of the mines down. So this is very, very nice for a lot of extra loading. You don't even really need this little node here, but I found it very helpful to just have extra mana so that I could cast my curse right away, or so that I could just have a flame dash ready if I need a dash out of the way. It's just nice to have that little extra bit of mana, but use your better judgment. If you don't feel you need this, then you've saved yourself a point, and that's totally acceptable. Using a point up here is very nice, as these are like pretty good, but it's better to just have like this big one, and then we save a few points. You can still do this one if you'd like. This is like 3 point something percent. You see it's 3.8% increased damage, which is nice. But this, you know, it's really not that much damage at all. It's not even a percent of damage. If you could take this one, it would be nice, but you've got to take all of them in that row if you want. So I just stuck with this one. We get some chaos resistance and we get some chaos damage. It's pretty nice. And we don't have too much chaos resistance unless you do find it on your jewelry. But this is the leveling tree. Let's head on over so we can see the skills. So I have this entire leveling section here that you're going to follow as you level your Toxic Rain Trickster through the game. Now, we can't start as mines right away, but we can start as Caustic Arrow. And you want to, from the very start, get a Caustic Arrow and a Pierce. Now, you will have to buy a bow, but they are only like 1 Wisdom Scroll from a vendor. So just check the vendor, see if you can get 2 green on any piece of your gear, and especially on the bow, it would be very nice to get that right away. You don't have to worry about bow rolls, as we're a chaos damage over time ability, and we don't really need to worry about that at all. So, you want to get Pierce right away, because when you shoot your Caustic Arrow and it pierces through an enemy, when it pierces, it puts the pool down, and then when it ends, it's traveling, it puts the pool down. So you get a lot more pools, and you can create like a line of pools if you use the Pierce support. Otherwise, it hits the first enemy and it puts a pool down. But you want it to go through the pack a little bit so that everything in that pack of monster has a Caustic Arrow pool underneath it doing damage, right? This caustic ground. If you get a 3 link, then you would use Void Manipulation at level 8. So you're going to get carried by Caustic Arrow all the way up until level 12. Now, onto level 12, you want to keep an eye out for some green and some blue sockets, because you will be using Blastchain mine and eventually charged mines. Now, just a green, blue, and a green, right? 2 green and a blue is totally fine. I would actually do Swift Assembly before Vicious Projectiles, just because Swift Assembly lets you throw so many extra mines down. And then I would have a charged mine there as well once you unlock that. But this is going to be your single target from level 12 onwards. We're going to use Caustic Arrow for clearing, and then we're going to spam a bunch of Toxic Rains down onto the ground for single target or for some rares. I like to put a few Toxic Rain mines down for magic packs as well. That's very helpful, as those do take a little bit to knock out. So from 12 onward, we're going to use Caustic Arrow and Blastchain mine. So from 12, we're going to start getting some mine nodes. So it's actually going to be worth it to start using the mine support. And it's going to be a lot smoother than having to aim and shoot your Caustic Arrow and whatnot as well. So we'll use Caustic Arrow, Blastchain, and then Pierce. You need to make sure that you have this 3 link. If you don't, I would just do Caustic Arrow and Pierce if you can't use the Blastchain mine. Having the Pierce is mandatory. That's the #1 support. And then in your 4 link, eventually Arrow Nova is very nice. With Pierce, we get an entire screen covered in the Caustic Arrow. It's very, very good while leveling for your clearing ability. From level 4, we'll pick up Dash, but at level 10, you'll get Flame Dash, and 12, you'll get Smoke Mine. Actually, you get Smoke Mine at level 10 as well. So as soon as you can, I would do the Flame Dash Smoke Mine combo. Smoke Mine being very nice, giving you a buff that gives movement speed. So you'll Smoke Mine, you have left mouse button on detonate mines. So it throws the Smoke Mine, detonates it, you teleport to the mine, and then you get a movement speed buff, and you can do that right after. And you can actually Flame Dash right after your mine detonates, giving you like a lot of very fast, very long movement if you don't mind doing that. Otherwise, you know, you just throw the Smoke Mine, use it every once in a while, get some movement speed buff. This move speed buff goes all the way once you hit level 20 on the gem, goes to 29% increased movement speed, right? That's almost a whole extra pair of boots on your character just for 1 gem socket. It's very, very good. And since we're a mine build already with detonate mines on left mouse button, we might as well just press a button every once in a while to get an extra pair of boots for 5 seconds or more, depending on our skill effect duration. So in Act 2, the aura we'll get, since we're a mine build, obviously, it's going to be summon Skitterbots. Skitterbots give us shocking and chilling aura. They also give us 10% more mine damage, and it will trigger and detonate our mines. And they will be rearmed, so it can be detonated again. So it's a few extra free mine detonations, which is very, very nice. So it's not going to mess up our Blastchain sequence because they do get rearmed right away. So it's just free damage, more mine damage, and then shocking, which is just so, so good. Once we hit Act 3, we'll want to use Malevolence, which gives us more damage over time and increased skill effect duration, perfect for Toxic Rain, and will self-cast Despair, giving -20 chaos resistance and making them take 15 increased damage from damage over time. Once you hit Act 6, this is so important. If you want to have good single target, you are going to need a Wither setup. That's going to look like having the spell Wither, multiple totems, and spell totems, and if you can, faster casting to get the Wither stacks up. The Wither stacks only last 2 seconds, but with 3 totems down and faster casting, you can get up to 15 Wither stacks on the monster if you have all of your totems down and you're being mindful of your positioning with them. This is very, very important. We outlined it before, but again, it's 90% increased chaos damage taken if you get the max Wither stacks. So once we hit maps, or up until maps, our Caustic Arrow clear setup is going to be Caustic Arrow, of course, Pierce, Blastchain Mine, so that it becomes a mine now. And then in our 4 link is Arrow Nova, so we can cover the entire screen. And if somehow you get a 5 link before maps and you want to use it on Caustic Arrow, I would use Vicious Projectiles. Now, if you're leveling as a Tabula, if you're leveling with a Tabula, I would also go ahead and use Trap and Mine damage, as this just gives us 49% more damage with this setup. So this is going to be your clear. You'll put one of these down on the boss just for an extra bonus damage. You know, it's on the Caustic Arrow pool, so it's doing just a little bit more, and maybe the ads get cleaned up. This is just amazing coverage, right? The entire screen's going to have the pool on the ground. It's going to be so easy to level through the game like this. And then once you get to the boss, you'll use this Toxic Rain setup. You'll have Toxic Rain, Blastchain, so it becomes a mine. Charged mines, so that you can throw them so much faster. Swift Assembly, so you throw a lot more mines. You know, instead of throwing 1, you have some chances to throw 3 mines at the same time, which is very nice. And then Vicious Projectiles, and as your last link, I would do Trap and Mine damage if you're using a Tabula later on into the league. For your mapping setup, it's going to be exactly the same for Toxic Rain. All of these are going to be the same. You just really want to focus on at least a level 21 Toxic Rain. Getting 21 Toxic Rain is more important than a level 20 and quality 20, right? Do not care about quality on your Toxic Rain until you already have a 21, right? I would go level 20, 0 quality, level 21, 0 quality, and then 21, 20. Getting this extra level is very, very important, right? If we're at level 20, we deal 537,000 damage. With 20 quality, we go up just AoE radius, right? It just gives us a tiny, tiny bit of area of effect, which doesn't matter, as the threshold for the next overlap is going to be 25. So at this point, it doesn't matter getting the quality, but we can go from 537 to 595, right? That's a huge jump. That's an extra 60,000 dot DPS on your Toxic Rain pod, right? That's huge. That's huge. Way better than Radius that doesn't do anything. So getting that right away, super important. For your Awaken gems, the only Awaken we'll use is Awakened Vicious Projectiles. In our Caustic Arrow Clear, it's going to be exactly the same as well. We'll have CA, Pierce, Arrow Nova, Vicious Proj, Blastchain Mine, and then Trap and Mine damage. If you only have a 4-link, just use the Blastchain Mine there. Here, we'll just change it to make it easy. These will be in order of importance, I think. But once you hit maps, you definitely should have at least a 4-link. Again, you have to use the Wither Totems if you want decent damage. Put them down first and then start laying your mines before you reserve all your mana, and then you won't have any to put your totems down. Just make sure you do that one first. For movement, we'll be using Dash and Second Wind. We don't use the bow movement skills because they're bad. They're really, really bad. Unless you're a Deadeye and you get the increased cooldown recovery rate for those blink arrows. But even then, it's really just not that good, especially considering Dash is just instant, there's no delay, and you can go over ledges super fast, super easy. It makes the gameplay so much smoother. I would just do Dash Second Wind, and we'll use Vol Grace for the defense. We will not be enabling the base aura, right? We won't use Grace, but we will use Vol Grace. You see Vol Grace at the top gives us 34 dodge to attacks and spells. This is going to cap our dodge when we need it for bosses, legions, or delirium. This is very, very important you have up for the boss. So I would save this unless you're in a legion. I pop it once the legion gets out just because those dudes are so annoying with their spears and whatnot, right? Just use your Vol Grace then, and just be mindful to have it up for the boss, because it becomes so much easier if you can just sit there throwing mines. You pop Vol Grace while you're throwing more mines, keeping that detonation sequence going, making it longer and longer, making your mines deal upwards of 100% more damage, right? Your pods will be dealing double damage if you can get that Blastchain to 20 or more, which should be fairly easy. For our auras, we'll be using Malevolence and Summon Skitterbots, just like we have throughout the entire leveling process. But now we'll want to make sure we have a cast and damage taken set up for our Steel Skin bubble. And then if you do have a Profane proxy, make sure you use Despair in the left ring slot so it does not override the Despair, so that it does not override your Shocking aura, right? If we put Profane proxy in the left ring slot and put our Despair in there, the Chilling aura will apply a Socketed Curse instead. So we still want them to be shocked, right? Something being shocked means it takes more damage. We don't care about the chill, right? That just means it's a little bit slower. I'd rather deal way more damage than for it to be just a little bit slower. Now, let's talk about the League Start setup on the gear. Let me go to the tree, right? You're not going to have any of those jewels yet. For the League Start setup, you just want to grab a +1 or +2 to level of Socketed Bow Gems bow. It's going to be a 4-link. That's totally fine. 4 links are okay until you hit red maps. Then you need to worry about getting an Imperial Legacy div card bow, which is going to give you a 6-linked Imperial bow, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. On every other piece of gear, you need to make sure that you're getting life and a resistance, and then if you have an open suffix, you can craft the resistance like we talked about earlier. On your amulet, make sure you grab an Amber amulet, as we're very starved for strength. We will need that for our Steel Skin setup. If you don't have that amulet, you might not be able to use the Steel Skin setup yet, or you will just have to grab some strength on the tree like I have here. Also on the boots, just try to get some movement speed and some life, and then you can craft a res on there. Really, we're just trying to cap our resistances here with the gear that we have. That is first and foremost the most important. On the flasks, we'll be using an instant divine flask of staunching. It's going to remove bleeding. This is very, very important. This is going to solve our mana problems. It is an enduring eternal mana flask. When you use this, your mana flask will keep going and keep ticking on you, giving you mana even when your mana's full. So this is very nice, as it always keeps us topped off and we're not wasting any mana flask charges. This is also, since it is always going like a utility flask, is going to give us freeze immunity. So it's very, very nice. This solves our mana problems completely. If you're not using this and having mana problems, it's because you're not using this. So please just use an enduring mana flask. All right, it's very good. It doesn't have to be eternal for this build. We don't use that much mana, but obviously you want to get the best mana flask you can. This lasts the longest and gives the most mana with this enduring tag. So you definitely want to pick that up. We will be using a silver flask at the start because it gives us onslaught. The attack speed doesn't matter, but it does give us 20 movement speed, which is very, very nice. And we will also put warding on it. Now, all of these immunities and whatnot, you can swap them around, right? You don't need warding on the silver. I just put it there as an example, but you do need warding somewhere on some utility, right? You don't want to put warding on your life flask because your life flask doesn't last for 7.75 seconds, right? When you press your life flask, if it has warding on it, you'll get immunity to that curse for 1/10 of a second until your life gets full, or in this case, you know, instantly, right? It's nice to have bleeding on your life flask because you just need to remove the bleed debuff. But when you want to remove a curse, the curses are on for the entire map if they're rolled on your map. So you need this immunity lasting more than an instant, right? So that's why we put these on utility flasks. And I also like to have, in this case, bleed immunity on this flask as well, because sometimes I press my flask a little bit too often and I lose the bleed immunity. I might hit a corrupting blood pack and I won't have flask charges for this, but if I hit my life flask, it'll get rid of all those bleed charges. So it's nice to just have them on both. We'll be using a quartz flask here with bleed immunity and duration to give us an extra 10 attack and spell dodge, and the phasing buff, which is very helpful to give you smooth gameplay so you can run through packs and not get stuck in the doorway. Of course, we'll be using an Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. You don't need the Alchemist part if you can't get it. That's the increased effect of this flask. If you can just get a Quicksilver that has the movement speed during flask effect roll, that's totally fine. That increased effect just increases the whole effect of the flask, giving us more move speed. You don't need it. It's just going to make you faster. It's totally fine. I mean, I don't get a flask like this until, you know, a little bit later into the league, as it's pretty difficult to roll and it can be pricey to buy. So for the cheap setup, what you want to grab is a +1 or +2 bow for the very, very start. Really just grabbing a +2 bow that's 4 or 5 linked is totally fine. All these other rare pieces are still the max life and res, but some of the very first stuff I recommend buying, right? 0 to 20 chaos at the very start of the league. I want you to grab a tabula. Tabula is a 6 linked, 6 white socket item. It's going to carry you all the way to red maps until you can get a nice unique chest piece that we'll talk about. Also, a profane proxy is so good because we don't have to self-cast our despair curse anymore. We just put our despair curse in this ring, and we put this ring in the left ring socket. So it overrides our chilling aura, and now our skitter bots have a despair curse that they're applying, making everything take increased damage over time and reducing the chaos resistance. This is very nice. It's just one less button to press, and then we have our little skitter bots running around, cursing everything for us. I really like that. I hate having to self-cast my curses. It's really just annoying to have to do that on the boss. I'd rather just put the totems down, throw my mines down, just start loading, and then I could just blast the boss away. And I don't have to worry about cursing, like, oh, did I curse it? Do I need to reapply the curse? The skitter bots will take care of that for you, and it gives some nice resistances as well. All of the flasks will be the same. Really, this cheap setup is just going to be getting a tabula and profane proxy. But for the moderate, we're going to start upping a lot of our gear and trying to get as much life as we can on them. But let's start with the bow. This bow is going to be from the Imperial Legacy Divination card. Now, you can get this Imperial Legacy div card by buying them on the trade website, or you can get them as drops from these zones that are in the notes. You can turn this in for a cheap 6-link bow. This is a 22 divination card. It's like 21, 22. To turn them in for a 6-link Imperial bow, these will cost about 2 chaos each. Maybe if you set up a live search, you can get them for 1, but you'll probably find a few while you level and while you go through the maps. So whatever else you need when your damage starts feeling lacking, or once you start to push into yellow maps, I would definitely start keeping an eye out for these cards and starting to buy them so you can get a pretty cheap 6-link bow, right? This can be your endgame weapon. You don't have to upgrade once you get this. It's 6-linked, right? That's all you need. And you can roll +2 to level of socketed bow gems just by alteration spamming, or if you want and have a dread essence, if you get it to, I think it is screaming or higher, it will automatically roll the +2 to socketed bow gems on there. And whatever else you can craft on your crafting bench out of the bow is very nice as well. For a while, I was doing mind damage just because it was like a 50% roll, or if you have chaos damage over time multiplier, that's totally fine as well. Either of those are very nice, and you can import your own character into Path of Building, and you can check to see if you want which would be more damage as well. For our quiver though, we will be using a pierce base, so our caustic arrow pierces another target, which is very nice, and we will get damage over time multiplier, which can be rolled on normal quivers. This is not a hunter influence. You can roll normal damage over time multiplier on your quiver, and on top of that, we're really trying to get a lot of life now, as we are on the right side of the tree and we don't have too much access to increase maximum life nodes on this side. We need to get as much flat maximum life on our rare gear as possible. So you want to shoot for 70+ life on all of your rare pieces. On our helmet, if you can get an enchantment, Toxic Rain dealing 40% increased damage is very nice. It's not needed, it's just very good. And most importantly, we want to get 80+ life, and you want to try to have an energy shield helmet. Because remember, since we are Trickster, we get +5 evasion rating per 1 maximum energy shield on our helmet. So not only do we get a little bit more ES, but I get an extra 857 evasion rating from my helmet, which gives me 4% evade chance. That's pretty nice, right? I get some extra energy shield, and I also get some extra evasion rating. And we want this to have life and res on it, so that's pretty cool. On our body armor, you want to try to get a carcass jack now. If you try it out and it feels good on a 5-link, that's totally fine. 5 links are pretty cheap, but I would recommend almost waiting on your tabula until you can get a 6-link version of this, as the 6-link is so good for this build. It adds so much damage, but we do get a lot of increased area of effect and area damage from our carcass jack. Now, this is very important on your carcass jack. If you do not have 20 quality on your Toxic Rain, which is okay, but if you don't have the 20 quality, we really want to hit 25 AoE radius, as that gives us our 5th Toxic Rain overlap. Right, we want all those pods to overlap. So going from 4 pods overlapping to 5 pods overlapping is an extra 25% more damage on single target. So that is very good. So if you still have just a level 21 Toxic Rain, you need to make sure you have at least 47 increased area of effect of area skills on your carcass. See, we're at 24 now. When I save this, we'll be at 25 AoE radius. Otherwise, you can have the lowest area of effect roll, but you will need at least 20 quality on your Toxic Rain. So if we go back to the carcass jack, now since we have the 20 quality, this roll doesn't matter, right? We'll still be at 25 AoE, but you will need this roll if you don't have the 20 quality, right? We go back to 0, and now we're at 24 AoE radius, which is losing so much damage for just getting a little bit better of a roll here. Carcass jack is the best in slot chest piece. It's just so good. It's got life, evasion rating, energy shield. We get all res and of course AoE and area damage, which helps out a ton. On our gloves, for now, we'll be looking for 70 plus life and a resistance, and wherever you can, you want us to try to pick up some chaos res. Whether that's from the hybrid craft you see here from unveiling items, this is how I like to get a lot of chaos res. I just do fire and chaos, or I'll do lightning and chaos, cold and chaos. Whenever I need a little bit of elemental resistance, I'll just try to tag some chaos res on there too. And if you get this on a lot of pieces, you'll find that you're above 0 chaos resistance, which is very nice because ideally you want to get as much of that as you can. So when you step in a dot pool or if something poisons you, you don't just get instantly deleted. For our boot slot, you can get Aziri's Step, which gives us 15% spell dodge, which is very good. We get 30 move speed, life, and some nice evasion rating as well. But as these are pretty expensive at the start of the league, you can substitute them for the 3-step assault boots, which give 25 move speed, 60 life, and 10 spell dodge while phasing, but we've got a quartz flask, so we'll be phasing most of the time. These are very good. You just lose a little life, a little move speed, and a little spell dodge, but as a budget option, that's not bad, right? We're still at 60 spell dodge with these, but with the Aziri Step, we go to 65, and that's just strictly better. For our amulet, you want to get an Agate amulet, giving strength and intelligence, 70 life or more, and then whatever resistances you needed. And the anointment is going to be exceptional performance, which gives us skill effect duration, making our pods last longer, our layers of pods last longer, and our damage just skyrocketing, right? This anointment gives us 10% of our total dot damage. That's just wild. And it's a clear amber and black, right? That's so cheap. This is a couple chaos on league start. That is so cheap, right? There's no opalescence, silvers or gold is required here. It's just clear amber or black. And if you have these, you couldn't do this, but this one, it gives the same skill effect duration, but this one requires an opalescent oil. If you have that and not the others in SSF, you know, don't worry about it. This one's just as good. It gives the same. But if you're in Trade League, this one will just be cheaper because it's clear amber black and opalescent is generally more than 10 chaos on League Start. Our ring, we're still rocking that Profane Proxy in the left ring slot as we still want to have that Despair aura from our Skitter bots. Our rings, this ring is going to be 70 plus life, or if you have to settle for 60 and whatever resistances you need, that's totally fine as well. Our belt, we're going to try to pick up a Stygian Vice, so we get an Abyssal Socket. And on this belt, you want to get 70 plus life and whatever resistances. Do you see the trend here, right? We got to get a bunch of life on our gear or you won't break 4K. Now, on your Abyssal Jewel, you want Onslaught on Kill. It's so good. Onslaught on Kill, it does work. Even though it's mines, it does work because it's a dot effect. And anytime your damage over time kills something, it counts as your kill. So we get to benefit from Onslaught on Kill. Our flasks, exactly the same. There is the Kintsugi option, which changes just the carcass for the Kintsugi. When you do this though, you do lose an entire extra overlap. So keep that in mind. You lose a lot of damage, but you also get a lot more survivability from the 20% less damage taken if you have not been hit, stacking with Wind Dancer, giving us 40 less damage taken if we've not been hit recently. Now, the expensive version is going to craft a more expensive bow. I talk about this in the notes, and we went over it in the video. It's going to be +1 socketed gems, +2 socketed bow gems, and then Chaos Dot multi crafted on there. We're still going to rock this quiver, as this is super solid, just getting that dot multi on there with the life and resistances. The helmet, you really want to try to get this enchant now. Once you start trying to push your damage and whatnot, getting that enchant is very good on there, and it'll let you use this helmet as a crafting base further on. At this point, you should have a 6-link carcass jack, giving you that extra AoE radius. But now on our gloves, we'll be using Hunter Influence gloves to get the chaos damage over time multiplier roll on there, alongside life and whatever resistances you can. Still using Adziri Step for spell dodge, but our amulet, still going to be an Agate amulet for strengthen it, still going to use that same anointment, but now this is going to be Hunter. And we'll try to get +1 level of all dexterity gems, giving another Toxic Rain level, which is huge, giving us more base damage that we get to scale with all of our tree and gear off of. Profane Proxy in the ring, and even more life and resistances on your ring, and if you can, get a Vermilion ring base, right? It gives us 6% increased maximum life. On the belt, we're going to try to just juice our life out the wazoo. We need like 90% max life. You want to get the Hunter roll for % increased life as well, and then whatever resistances you get are totally fine. Again, we're going to use Onslaught on Kill, but we want to try to get Onslaught on Kill and a Corrupted Blood Cannot Be Inflicted on You Corrupted Abyss Jewel. This is going to be a little bit expensive. I think these have gone for 50 Chaos or an Exalt before. It's very much worth it though, as Corrupted Blood is super annoying. Now, being in the expensive tier, of course, we're going to pick up a Bottled Faith. Bottled Faith is so good. This gives us an insane amount of damage. The Sulfur Flask gives 40% increased damage on its own. The Consecrated Crown lets us get 6% life regen. And we don't care about the crit roll, but this last line, Consecrated Ground created during effect applies 10% increased damage taken to enemies. So that's just increased damage taken. It has nothing to do with crits. They take increased damage. So this flask gives us an extra 10% more damage, and it gives us some life regen. This is not needed at all, but it's pretty good. It's pretty cool. And if you got the money, you might as well buy it, as there aren't too many other flask options. Now, for the God tier gear setup. For this, we also have the notes section talking about the God tier bow. It's going to be exactly the same crafting method as the expensive bow, but to hit that +1 level of socketed dexterity gems, you will have to use a faceted fossil alongside all of the other ones. So that's going to drive the crafting price up a lot, because now you have to buy a 4-socket resonator and you have to buy those expensive faceted fossils. Now on our quiver, we will try to use a Hunter influence quiver. We will try to use a Hunter influence quiver that has damage over time multiplier and chaos damage over time multiplier, alongside any life and resistances that you can get on the item as well. Our helmet is going to be a Hunter influenced helmet with that enchant for 40% increased toxic rain damage, as much life as we can, and this Hunter mod, nearby enemies have -9 to chaos resistance, giving us a lot of damage. Still using Carcass Jack, as it's the best in slot chest piece, helps us and is mandatory to hit that 25 AoE radius. Our gloves are going to be Warlord and Hunter, giving chaos damage over time multiplier, life, and from Warlord, Culling Strike, which is a practical 10% more damage taken mod, because we will instantly kill anything that is at 10% life or lower with our hits, which is very nice, right? And we'll also use +1 socketed AoE and increased area of effect craft, just giving us a little bit extra levels, or in this slot, you can craft whatever else you need, resistance or whatnot. Really, you just want the life, chaos.multi, and culling strike. Our boots are going to be life, chaos res, move speed with the spell dodge enchant from lab, and if you can get a little bit spicy here and use that abyssal fossil and try to get all of this alongside an abyss socket on your boots, right? Doesn't that sound a little spicy? That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And on this jewel, you want to grab some max life, increased damage over time while wielding a two-hand weapon, right? Bows are two-handed, so that does count. And increased damage if you've killed recently. Our amulet, the goal here, the absolute goal, is going to be chaos.multi, life, double res, +1 all chaos, and +1 dex skill gems. Now, obviously, this is a little nuts, but yo, harvest crafting's coming back, okay? Harvest crafting's coming back. So eventually you will be able to get something like this, but if you have to sub out, you know, one of the plus gem levels, that's totally fine. Just go for 2 out of the 3 of the like sick rolls here, right? Grab both plus levels or grab a level and chaos dot multi. You just gotta get what you can and try to upgrade it as you go. I still prefer to use Profane Proxy even in this god tier setup. It's just so good. On our ring, you want to grab the life-based Vermilion ring. Get life, get chaos res, use resistance catalysts here so that you can save a little bit of resistances on other pieces of gear. And if you can, craft the non-channeling skills have -9 total mana cost, so that our Toxic Rains, putting the mine down, actually costs 0 mana, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Our belt is going to be a hunter belt. Now, just juicing the life up more, we get Catalyst that gives life and mana modifiers 20% increase effect. So we get a bunch of flat life, we get the percent life, and since it's a hunter item, we'll try to get the increased chaos damage roll on there, as well as a lot of resistances. Still using a Corrupted Blood Onslaught on Kill Abyss Jewel. But now, for the God tier setup, we will be using the Intuitive Leap to grab and save some points, and we'll use just a Malevolence damage over time multiplier, Watcher's Eye. Nothing else matters on this jewel. You want just the damage over time multiplier while affected by Malevolence. Our flasks are going to maintain the same. Having that Bottle Faith is just a bunch of damage. It's just giving us more damage, and it's pretty good for the life regen as well. Also, for your rare jewels, if you can, you want to just grab max life and 2 of any of the damage things, right? We can scale off mind damage, area damage, chaos dot multi, damage over time, chaos damage, you know, just damage, you know? Try to just grab 2 damage things and a life, or if you need life and resistances, if you need to cap them up a little bit, any of that is totally fine. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a ton of fun on this league start. I am so excited. This Ritual League, this Echoes of the Atlas, it looks so cool, and this is definitely going to be a pretty good bosser. It's going to slow, it's going to do a bunch of damage. It's so easy to play. You don't have to move your mouse around a bunch, you know, moving around, trying to click and stuff like that. You just put the mine on the ground and detonate it. It should be an absolute blast and a sick league starter, all right? I'll catch you guys in my Twitch stream or YouTube. Yes, I do both. And I'll see you guys later, all right? Bye. Oh, make sure to sub, by the way. If you watched you watched like what, like 50, 40 an hour minutes? Dude, just sub. Oh my god, you've been here an hour, all right? Just subscribe, especially if you took my POB, man. Like, yo, come on, dude, you yoinked it. All right, just press the button, dude. I made the whole POB. Just press that button, all right? Thank you.